Welcome to the Omen Comics Podcast, where we talk about everything from writing comics to the philosophies held within them. My name is Michael Nunneley, the creator of the Omenverse, and with me, as always, is my friend Steve Sellers, the creator of the Blitzverse. Today, we'd like to welcome Bud Kelly. He is a creator of characters like Freddy Feather and Salagi Hellbilly. He is from the Appalachian Mountains, and you can get his commissions or single-page comics by email at comicbookredneck@yahoo.com. He's also the author of Mountain Voices, People and Language of Appalachia, and that can be purchased on Amazon. How you guys doing today?
Doing pretty well. How about you, Bud?
Oh, I'm fat and sassy.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about what makes a hero, but in typical Omen Comics fashion. The heroes we're going to be talking about are going to be questionable heroes at best. So I'd like to open up this discussion with the titular character from Omen Comics, Omen himself. The character Frank Wade. He has not been the most honorable guy in his life. In fact, he's been willing to cast aside any morals or ethics he might have for the purpose of committing his duty. He wanted to be the best soldier that he could possibly be. He wanted to be the best soldier that there was. He wanted to serve his country, right? But that perception of him got a little his perception of what was right and wrong became skewed very quickly with a series of bad choices. He had a somewhat rough childhood, which kind of made him tend to want to drink a lot, and so early on in his career there as a soldier, he actually even got drunk there when he was supposed to be on his post guarding, and decided to go walk about the streets of Baghdad. And in the process, he ended up killing a kid that he thought was wearing a suicide vest, and turns out he wasn't at all, and there was no reason to kill him. Granted, that kind of aided him for a little while, but he slowly had to cut off. He slowly had to cut off himself from emotions like that, and those things tend to kind of make it so he wasn't very heroic. He did things like he tortured severely one of our other characters, Patrick O'Leary. That was a pretty horrid event. It definitely, you couldn't, a normal person just couldn't slice and dice somebody's face like that. You couldn't do that and consider yourself to be a good person, in my opinion.
He's got a lot of road to walk back from that.
Yeah. So I mean, but on the other hand, as you're gonna see in Omen #2, which is coming out tomorrow, actually, you're gonna see that he does have he still has a sense of right about his men, about the people that he was actually protecting. When he originally became a soldier, it was about serving his country. And so he does have a general concern, a general, I wouldn't go as far as calling it a love, but he definitely has a concern for Americans in general. That kind of drives him to want to be. That was the initial drive in wanting to be that really good soldier, that he wanted to be the best he could, to be able to serve in the best way that he can. And that is his one real saving grace. In fact, in Omen #1, you'll find that Frank actually gave up his own life in order to save the life of his men, because he valued their life above his own. There are these aspects that I think that make Frank at least have the potential of being a hero. What do you guys think?
I would say that the angle of patriotism and the element of self-sacrifice is definitely his main redeeming feature, and I think it does kind of sort of help, especially since he's already suffered quite a bit because of the fact that he did sacrifice himself.
Right.
And so this is like essentially his redemption arc.
Very true. Very true. Even the very armor that he's in, the Abra and Malgog, the angels that possess his armor, even they are looking for redemption. Redemption is kind of Frank's thing.
Mm.
What about you, Bud?
I piggyback off of that, and I say, the fact is, though, for me, when they're out ready, then their feather got a blackened heart, that it leaves a possibility the feather is not going to always go on the straight and narrow.
Mm-hmm.
So, you might be on the path of redemption, but, there's a lot of exits and byways off of them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
you don't be in the creators, you know which way it's going. But me as a fan, I'm thinking, this feather might be starting down that way, but
Mm-hmm.
That blackened heart, when there's someone got that blackened heart, they just got that thing about them to where if something comes along and gooses their brain a little, they're going to fly off in the other direction.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of things that can pull you away from that path.
And I'm sure that Frank will get more than his share of temptation down there.
Yes, he will. We definitely have many of those temptations in mind. So, Bud, I hear that you want to talk about one of my favorite characters, Larfleeze.
Yuppers.
Why don't you break that on down for us?
Alrighty. Well, you all know, and people out there listening know that they got their ears perked because Larfleeze is a rather popular character. Fact is whenever you look at this feller, there's always that thing about him is that you don't really know just how much of it is true. He does have a kind of a disposition about him to where he does want to tell the fibbers. But when you get down to it and you look at the origin story for this feather, whenever he was born, his mama just said that he was the ugliest baby there ever was. When you start off life like that and your mama think you ugly, you don't even got to face your mama going to love. You're already on a slippery slope to Badville. And his brothers and his sisters, they didn't like him either. They wanted him to basically to go away and get gone, and he was forced into slavery at 10 months old. I don't know what kind of work a 10-month-old baby could do. I really don't. But here he is 10 months old, and he's already out there being a slave, and he becomes a slave himself. Then he falls in love, and he has a whole stinking slew, a whole passel full of young'uns, and then they're taken away from him. And his lover, Kaya, she ends up dying. So that we see a pattern in this, though, is that in his origin, everything that he loves and everything he holds dear is being taken from him.
Mm.
And he comes in, the whole story about parallax, that came in there. Fella had all kinds of trouble with that. His whole life was about, one tragedy after the other. But the thing is whenever he come upon, the lantern, the light of avarice, the greed aspect, there was a qualification that was put on that they must have a strong sense of duty. So through all this, he maintained his sense of duty and honor, which was really on display whenever he set free all the slaves. If he was truly greedy and truly selfish, you would have thought the fella would have just focused on saving himself.
That's
But
a good point.
Took the time. He took the time to set the slaves free. So this thing about him having a sense of duty is, pretty straight. And then you think about his age, and the fella is one of the oldest critters in the universe. And that means that he has spent a lot of time out there on his own. So whenever you spend a lot of time alone, you don't really develop a lot of social skills.
And apparently you develop cravings for rat waffle cheese.
Well, who wouldn't?
Yeah. Well, not a whole lot of creature comforts in the Vegas system.
Very true. But yet, he made the most out of a bad situation through it all. And, when Jeff Johns came up with the emotional spectrum, and we really began to understand about all the lanterns and how that they work and everything, it really made sense that, with Larfleeze, that he would be the one drawn to that lantern of avarice, that sense of greed, because you come from that kind of background. You look at most fellas that are hoarders, and I know a lot of people would think that I'm a hoarder. I'm not. I'm just a collector of junk. But, the fact is that whenever you come from that, you want to hold on to everything that you got. And you want to keep it because you're getting tired of losing everything. This was another aspect that was seen in Larfleeze, is that the tragedy behind him is that he's lost everything that he held dear. His own mama didn't want him. His own kin didn't want him. Been enslaved, and it's the only life he ever knew. He found love that was took from him. This built up, in my mind, the traits and the character of a hero. He didn't just give up. He kept searching for something out there. And the Orange Lantern gave him exactly what he needed. Now, we know that Larfleeze is being considered a bad fella because he kills folks. But understand, whenever he kills these folks, these constructs becomes things that he can use. And maybe where we don't even know is that he has these constructs to keep him company as well. These are things that he derives and comes at and helps him in all these different situations that he is. And, old Hal Jordan, he got a wild hair up his crack, and he came along and tried to take the battery from him. Well, the thing is again, that he didn't give up. He held in there, and he fought literally against hope. Remember, this was during the time that, the green and the blue and all that, and this was kind of coming together. Larfleeze was in a situation to where it took an act of heroism to defend his own property.
All right, so if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that the heroic aspect of Larfleeze is more his strength of character. He does have at least a part of him that is willing to go out of the way for others, but the main thing about him, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that he has this enduring character.
Yippers.
What do you think about that, Steve?
Well, I mean, Larfleeze is definitely a character that honors his bargains. I mean, in his own way, but he definitely does this. He certainly did that when he made a deal with the Guardians both times in his the story in which he debuted. We can also definitely see that this is somebody who has managed to survive for millions of years in horrible conditions. He's definitely somebody who is a survivor. So yeah, I would say that there's definitely is a lot of truth to that.
I can go with that. I mean, even Darth Vader had honor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That says something about you.
He started off as a hero.
Right? All right. I like it.
Mhm.
I was when I first heard you were going to talk about Larfleeze, I was going that ran me for a loop. I sat and thought about that for a couple days. I was like, how is he going to work this one?
I had to go back and reread a little bit because I was trying to see, okay, how where is this necessarily coming from? And after that, I was like, okay, I can kind of see an argument.
Good job on that one, bud.
What I do?
Well, Steve, I guess you want to talk to us today about Nero.
Ah, yes, Michael Nero, Demon Slayer, professional investigator of the occult,
Yes.
and addictive personality. That's his main problem is he has this gift or curse, however you want to call it, called the third sight, which allows him to see pretty much everything that humans can't. Which is to say that he can see spirits, he can see demons, he can see into other worlds, or he can see shadows or echoes of other worlds. And so he's usually seeing things that are terrible. Imagine, like, every day of your life watching Lovecraftian horrors come out of the wall and start doing horrible things. They can't actually affect him, but he sees them and he can hear them as if they were real. So because of this, he has found different ways to cope, and they have not really been healthy. He has certainly turned to drugs, which I refer to as his 7% solution, a nod to Sherlock Holmes. He's definitely, and he nearly killed himself doing this. And really the only reason that he's around and doing anything at all is because Lu Oshi, his mentor and partner, helped him and saved him from that. But he has other ways that he's coped that have also not been healthy. He's incredibly arrogant. He can be very dismissive of people. He can be very dismissive of things that he considers to be stupid or beneath him. He is definitely somebody who can come across as being very dismissive of people. And he's often very cold and comes across as callous. But all of these things are things that he has developed as a way to protect himself from this ability that he doesn't want and that he considers in many ways to be a curse. But that is not the whole of Nero. And I think that Nero has found ways to channel these problems towards the common good, which is one of the things that I think saves him a bit. And some of it has been due to Lu's guidance. I mean, Lu has certainly helped him along that path as well. And which shows that he does value some people. He is loyal to certainly to those who help him. But he generally has sort of a way of, he values human life, I would say, mainly. I think you're going to find, looking at Nero, that in a world of characters that, you know, casually kill people, Nero may actually be one of the least violent characters in the Omen verse. You know, he's somebody who solves his problems with his intellect. He solves his problems with his detective skills, with what he sees, you know, and thinking his way out of problems. So, and part of the reason is because he knows what happens to people after they die, and he sees that a lot of it is full of suffering, and he wants to work to alleviate that suffering, not just for himself, but for these poor souls that he encounters all the time. And we're going to see kind of a little bit of this coming up with Druid and Nero number 2. He is arrogant for sure, but again, a lot of this is to protect himself. But for all of that, he does have a soft spot for the little guy, for the downtrodden. He does do cases for people that you might not necessarily think that he would help. He did investigate this case that we'll talk about eventually in Druid and Nero, called the Straight Razor Killer, where he was investigating a serial killer that was... I don't want to kind of get into that too much because it would kind of get into spoiler territory, I think. But the reasons that he does this are not really to help anybody but the community. So he does that. And sometimes he'll do cases, just for the mental challenge, and he's not going to care necessarily about the money, even though, he runs a business. So there is a little bit of that aspect. This is also somebody who, again, is trying to channel this thing that he has towards a good end, because partially it's to keep himself sane, but I think also it's because he feels like, well, I have this thing, I have this ability, this curse, and I don't want anybody else to have it because it'll drive them crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve cases, and I'm going to make people's lives a little bit better by solving problems that most people can't. So this is kind of where he kind of put together Nero Investigations, and why he is constantly jumping into things. And he also, I would say, is pretty fearless also. This is not somebody that will back down very easily, and it is because of the third sight, because if you spent your whole life dealing with things that are crazy and things that would scare anybody into an insane asylum, and you're still after that being able to go, I would say after a while you get a little desensitized to the effects, and suddenly things that would seem scary and crazy to anybody else, to Nero, well, it's just Tuesday for him. So he'll go where other people will feel fear to tread to a certain extent, because he is kind of desensitized to fearful stimuli.
Sounds like Nero is the model of the almost reluctant superhero.
Yeah, I would say I don't think that he's necessarily in it. If it were up to him and he didn't have this thing, I mean, he may very well have gone in a very different direction. I mean, he could have been like a Sherlock Holmes, or he could have been something completely else. He might not necessarily have decided to get into the paranormal investigative business.
Right. What's your thoughts on that, Bud?
Well, the thing is get that third side, and that right down something up a rat's tail. But whenever you're invested in that world, and you can see and know things that people are afraid of, and things that people are quick to dismiss and say aren't out there, and the truth of it, that would also bear a weight on their shoulders.
Well, and yes, definitely.
That weight, and that comes down on you pretty hard. I use this as an example. Most people think that people that live up in the mountains and the hills, they have the stereotypical image of Snuffy Smith and Jed Clampett and all them. And people that think of the paranormal, demons, ghosts, things that are out there, they're to be afraid of. People fear that which that they don't know. Nero knows.
Yes.
And because he knows, that takes away a lot of the fear.
Correct.
Knowledge is power.
Yes.
And when you're invested with that knowledge and that power, and you understand it, that becomes your superpower over the things that other folk fear.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, Nero is heroic in that he's willing to suffer for the betterment of others.
I would say definitely that would be the case, yeah. That is part of why he does this.
That
And I
seems to be it seems to be a general theme among the three characters we chose here.
Yep.
I would say the sense of duty thing seems to cross over a lot with all three.
Okay. Well, that was certainly eye-opening. I wasn't quite sure where everybody was going to go with that. I think we made some interesting points here. It seems like so even if you don't necessarily always make the right decisions, even if you to quote Clerks, even if you love gatherings but you hate people.
Yeah.
If even in these situations, there are still opportunities for heroism. You like they say in Deadpool, one or two moments, that kind of a thing.
Well, just like you can have one bad day, as the Joker said in Killing Joke, I think it works in reverse too. You can have a good day, and sometimes that one good day is enough.
Ah, hey, what do you know? It does work both ways. That's a good point. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, especially Bud, for joining us from all the way from Appalachia.
Thanks for coming by, Bud.
Hey, anytime. I'm just out here with the old hound and out here with the mountains and the hills and enjoying the geek life out here amongst all these rednecks.
Well, I hope you enjoy life about there and amongst the hills and with the dog and the rednecks.
When they're not taking aim at me, I'm doing pretty good.
Right on.
Thank you for listening to the Omen Comics podcast. This has been Steve Sellers and Michael Nunneley here with Omen Comics. And we encourage you to look into all our Omenverse titles, wherever they might be sold, including Comixology, Amazon, Draw Me and Comics, and elsewhere. If you like our content, please like, subscribe, hit the magic bell for notifications. And until next time, we'll see you in the Omenverse.